Hello, everybody. I am Dr. Suzanne Russ, and I'm here to give you the official intro and welcome to Advanced Statistics. I'm really excited to be able to work with you. I haven't taught this class before, but I know working with so many students in Psych 213, I've just sensed that some of you should be going further. And so I will take this journey together and see how we do. Most of you are coming from Psych 213 statistics. If you're coming from a different statistics class, you might have a little bit more of a learning curve as you get used to the way we're approaching things here in Psych 313, which is much the way we did in Psych 213. And so I'll give a separate little talk to you about things you should be aware of as you join us in this approach. So let me share my screen. I'll go over the syllabus and then over the course site. So you should see our syllabus on the screen right now. I've got a really giant screen, and I'm always wondering how that translates if you have a smaller screen. But here it is. Not sure why that's there. Okay, so we don't have a meeting time scheduled, but you will have seen that I put forward a request for anyone who would like a meeting time. So I'll update you on what response I get. I would enjoy actually having at least some of you in a classroom or at least a Zoom situation if possible, because it helps me to gauge your understanding with the concepts we're doing and helps me with pacing and so forth. So I'll see what happens with the responses to the survey. Just a couple of details. Let's see. So it's best when you have something to let me know about that you email. Excuse me, my voice is so weak today. Email is easier because usually it involves me getting a document for you or doing something in the Canvas portal, and all of that is just much easier on my computer, which I get with my email. So I appreciate communication that way. Of course, if it's urgent, I've given you my text and my phone number, so whatever you need. We are using the text we've used before, Statistics for Psychology. It's okay if you're not in psychology, but I like the way they approach it because they approach it in much the way that for people who are a little bit more grounded in a language-based discipline, they have a really nice language-based approach. So I really do recommend this textbook. I mentioned in the class description that we would be using SPSS, which is the statistical package that I learned on. And we actually aren't going to be doing it. We're going to be using a different program, a free alternative called PSPP, because SPSS costs money and we weren't able to get it listed as a course for you, even though there's a grad pack edition that's cheaper anyhow. We're going to be using a different version. And I'm hoping to also have you download some data sets and play around with real data and real research questions using existing data. For credit class, those of you who have had this before, you know that you do have to do the work or you're not going to get what's going on. And it has to be really concentrated and focused. I think all of you who are at this level know that, and I don't need to worry about that. You can read all of this kind of thing, but I'm just going to skip through and get to the highlights. So your assignments, you have weekly assignments that involve coming to class, doing practice quizzes, usually during class. Now, if this is strictly online, you'll be watching lectures and then doing practice quizzes. Practice quizzes are pretty easy. They're just 2 items, and you can do it as many times as you want. And I'll always keep your highest score. It's just like if I'm teaching a concept, like in the first week, we're just defining some terms, variables, values, and scores. You can do this 2-item quiz until you get really comfortable with it, because repetition is the way to feel comfortable with these concepts. Then we'll also have quizzes. The quiz is actually the last thing you do in the chapter, and it's set up so that it has to be last, and it's just multiple choice. Once you get to that point where you've done all your homework and the practice, you shouldn't have too much difficulty with the quiz. So then application homework, this is where the heaviest burden of work will come. You'll get a spreadsheet each week, or I should say a workbook. each week with several spreadsheets in it with problems that you need to solve. Some of the problems you'll be solving by hand, and you can do it on paper and then take a picture and paste it into the spreadsheet. Or you can do it if you have a digital, like I use a whiteboard on my computer and I have a pen, so it works well, however you want to, but doing some things by hand has its benefit. But then we do work closely in Excel, so I've already prepared a little Excel tutorial if you're someone who's not coming to this from one of our Psych 213 classes. Then often there's a bonus. In week one, there's just a bonus question on the main problem, but there often is a bonus that we use that you have an optional problem you can solve and get 2 extra points. And then we'll just have a midterm and a final exam, and they'll be both conceptual with multiple choice questions and application problems where you'll have to know what statistical technique to apply and then apply it to the database to test a hypothesis. You'll see that the criteria for passing here are a little bit lower than typical, you know, and I think it's fair for a class like this. Usually it's sort of funny. People are either getting an A or they're getting like barely passing. Most people do pretty well, and there are not too many Bs. I don't know why that is exactly. Our due dates in this week will be Monday at midnight consistently. And there is a bonus that you can use on the exam for completing your weekly work on time. It's beneficial to me to grade the applications all at once. It goes much more quickly, and I can get you feedback that's more thorough, more detailed. There are a bunch of benefits to turning in that application and quiz on time. And I'm not going to say I won't accept it if it's late, but you definitely get a worthwhile bonus if you submit it on time, which is you get to, for each week that you're on time, you get to choose a multiple choice question on the exam and just say, I want credit for this, even if I'm wrong. And so that's a really nice perk for being on time. I really recommend that you do your reading. I explain things in one way, but your authors have a really nice way of explaining things also. So I do recommend that you make sure and do the reading. And the module sequencing, you have to do them in order. So you have to go through each of the sets of slides. And then you also have to do the application assignment before you are allowed to take the quiz. So you can't take the quiz if you didn't do your application. And it's because doing the application helps you do well on the quiz. Don't fall behind. That's all I'm going to say. You won't catch up. You'll have to drop. Excel. So if you took Psych 213, you've become pretty skillful with Excel. We do use it. It's a valuable tool. Some students are resistant. They want to keep doing work by hand. The metaphor that I would offer is that doing work by hand has its benefits. I mean, then you really know what you're doing. But once you get past that point, Excel is a tool. You still have to know what you're doing. You still have to know the formulas and when to apply them. But you don't have mathematical errors, you don't have rounding errors, and you can work with large data sets using the tool of Excel. And as mentioned earlier, we're going to be adding an additional tool so that we can just basically do tests for testing for normality, which we'll talk about a little bit later. I'm going to try to always grade your application assignments on Tuesdays. I'm not promising. I have a lot of students in Psych 213, and that'll be a lot of grading for me, but that's my goal. I hope to have each week's assignments up and ready to go before Monday of that week. That's my intention. Just going through then what the schedule is going to look like. It's pretty straightforward. So you'll see that we're already doing chapter 1 and 2 review. And that's basically displaying data, creating histograms, the shapes of histograms, and central tendency, and then standard deviation. So this is all review. And in the second week, we're going to review standardized scores like Z-scores and the 5 steps of hypothesis testing. Now, this won't be review for you if you haven't taken Psych 213. But it is review for those of you who took that class, and that's why we're kind of going much more quickly than in Psych 213. And then we're going to do a review of sampling distributions. And then statistical significance is chapter 6. And we may decide to spend an extra week on chapter 6. It's one that usually gets short shrifted in Psych 213, and I think the content is pretty important. So we'll decide when the time comes. And then we're going to review our t-tests, one sample t-test, paired sample t-test, and independent samples t-test. So that's the first 4 weeks. Then we start getting into analysis of variance, which is like an extension of a t-test for having more than 2 conditions. And so that should be kind of good. And so we'll get a feel for that. Then we'll review for the midterm and take the midterm. Then we're going to jump into chapter 11 and review correlation, its limitations, of course, the mathematical processes. And then we're going to go into spending some time on chapter 12a. You're seeing we're taking 2 weeks on most of these chapters. We're going to do prediction, regression, multiple regression. I'm anticipating 2 weeks. I may be wrong. And if I'm wrong, there's much more always to explore. So we'll just see. Then we'll get into chi-square, chapter 13. We'll review that. And then we'll go into what happens if you have a and I will say, excuse me, that we'll also do chi-square for situations where, different kind of situations where our data don't quite fit the model that's needed. Then we'll get into strategies when we don't have a normal distribution, then we need to adjust the database. There are different things we can do to adjust the database, or else we have to do entirely different statistical tests. And then we're going to understand a general linear model, which is how like personality inventories, for example, are validated. We have a cushion week in here. That's a good thing. Then we'll review for the final exam and take the final exam. So that's a quick overview of the class, and I'll do a separate recording for those of you who are coming not from Psych 213. Let me know if you have any questions. And actually, I should quickly show you the course website as well. I intended to do that, and I didn't, so I'm going to add that, even though I just said goodbye to you. So this is our course homepage. There will be announcements on top. You need to read them. They'll usually be relevant and important. I hope so. There are these buttons you can use to navigate the course, but you can also just navigate through this side menu. You'll see the syllabus is here, so you can download it. I will keep it updated. The modules are where you're always going to begin. You will be able to see your grades. Right now, the gradebook might be messy, but I'll fix it up. I will connect you with a partner in class you can go to with questions or to work together. So we'll make sure and take care of that. Your practice quizzes are here, and they're also linked in the modules. There's tips and how-to videos here, like for goofy little things that come up, especially using Excel. Tips and troubleshooting. This is like YouTube videos. It's a module, but it's really just different things, and I'll show you some of the things that are in here. So how to download a spreadsheet, some Excel basics, how do you get to the class recordings? Sorry about that. Basic Excel functions, how to split screen in Windows so that you can like look at maybe a demo, and then on the other screen you can have your spreadsheet showing if you don't have a separate screen. So there are all kinds of things that you can use, how many decimal places should be used. So all of that should be helpful to you going along. The next button is tools and resources, and we'll use this all the time once we get to like week 3. We do early on in week 2, I believe, we'll start to use the percentile calculator tool. We'll use these calculator tools all the time to just identify our cutoff points so we don't have to use those big charts that are in the back of old textbooks. The 5 steps of hypothesis testing for the z-test. This will be helpful if you're new to this approach. The first 4 chapters of the textbook I've copied for you because we had some trouble with textbooks a couple of years ago. I did make glossary. There are terms and, of course, Greek symbols we're learning all along. So for a few of these chapters, I have glossary. And then like just some images. We do always draw the cutoff points onto a normal distribution, so you can see images here that might be useful to you. Finally, we'll come to applications. This is just a OneDrive folder that will have your application assignments. And if we do get to meet as a class, it'll also have your demo spreadsheets. I might post these for you regardless. So here we have the chapter 1 application. And this is the Site 213 link. So I'm going to correct it so that it's the Site 313 link. But other than that, this is what it's going to look like. You're always going to download these spreadsheets and save them under your name. You won't be allowed to edit these that are in the folder for you. I think that's about it. And so I hope you'll feel comfortable navigating around in the course. The modules is where you will begin. And I will put I feel like I am in the wrong class now. Yes, I am in the wrong class now. Here we are. This is the modules where we will begin. And you can see here then that there are some videos, some new and some old, some new to our class, and then some that are from before. To learn the concepts, the practice quizzes are directly linked to these concepts. And so if you go on to the next lecture, you'll see that the practice quizzes are, I tell you in those little short lectures, what practice quiz to do. And so this is the chapter 1 practice quizzes. And once again, these are just 2-item, they're just for practice. You should get everything and get all the points on these because they're just giving you a chance to work with new terms, with new language, with new concepts without any penalty, just to practice. So that's what they are. Aside from that, then in the module, you'll have, in a typical module, once we're underway, you'll have demos. And right now, I don't yet have new demos. I made this tutorial for students who maybe haven't worked that much with Excel. But then aside from that, these are recordings from the previous semester. Some of them are new, actually. These are new recordings, actually. I made them a couple days ago. So yeah, these will be instructions for you to follow along or recall this if you had forgotten from last term. And then you'll come into your same thing for chapter 2, because we are doing 2 chapters. Some review material. I'm going to make some new recordings. These are the ones I didn't yet record new. The practice quizzes, the demos, and then here's your assignments that are due. The chapter 1 and 2 application has problems from both chapters, and you'll download it, save it, and then you'll take the quiz. Instructor notes are just notes for me, and so that's what we have going on for you. And now I will end this recording. Thank you.